Standing in the boardroom of Harper Logistics, I couldn't help but feel a surge of pride as I reviewed the quarterly reports. 12 years of relentless work had transformed my father's struggling logistics company into a $75 million empire. The glass walls of my corner office reflected the city skyline, a view that had become my constant companion during countless late nights and early mornings. At 36, I had built something remarkable, turning what was once a modest family business into an industry leader through sheer determination and strategic vision. My phone buzzed with a notification about our upcoming family dinner, an annual tradition where we gathered to celebrate another year of success. As I straightened my blazer and prepared to leave, I felt a familiar mix of anticipation and apprehension. These dinners always carried an undercurrent of tension, though my parents had never explicitly acknowledged it. Growing up, I had watched my father pour everything into this company while my mother managed the household, their traditional roles firmly established. My brother Ethan, 2 years my junior, had always been the golden child, charismatic, charming, and seemingly destined for greatness in my father's eyes. Despite my achievements, there was an unspoken understanding in our family that Ethan would eventually take the reins of Harper Logistics. It wasn't something we discussed openly, but the subtle hints were impossible to ignore. The way my father would ask Ethan's opinion on business matters during family gatherings, or how he'd casually mention succession planning while looking pointedly at my brother. Each instance chipped away at my confidence, no matter how many successful deals I closed or how much revenue I generated for the company. As I drove to the restaurant, my mind replayed countless conversations with my parents about finding a suitable husband and settling down. They seemed unable to reconcile their daughter's ambition with their traditional values. Yet, I had proven myself time and again, expanding our operations nationally, implementing cutting-edge technology solutions, and securing lucrative contracts that had tripled our market share. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had built the very empire they seemed determined to hand to someone else. The private dining room at Giovanni's was filled with the warm glow of candlelight and the soft clinking of crystal glasses when I arrived. My heels clicked against the marble floor as I approached our usual table, where my parents and Ethan were already seated. The atmosphere was unusually formal tonight, with fresh flowers adorning the centerpieces and our extended family members mingling nearby. I caught my mother's eye as I took my seat. Her smile seemed strained, though she quickly masked it by adjusting her pearl necklace. The first course arrived, and conversation flowed easily enough, discussing recent family events and light business topics. But as dessert plates were cleared, my father stood up, his posture commanding attention. "Family," he began, his voice carrying the weight of authority he'd always commanded. "Tonight marks a significant transition for Harper Logistics." He paused dramatically, surveying the room before continuing. "After careful consideration, we've decided it's time for Ethan to step into the leadership role." The words hit me like a physical blow, though years of corporate training kept my expression neutral. I forced a smile as I watched my father place a proud hand on Ethan's shoulder, his gesture speaking volumes about his expectations. The murmurs of approval from around the table felt deafening, each congratulatory nod directed at my brother, driving home the reality of the situation. Ethan maintained a modest facade, though I knew better. His eyes gleamed with triumph as he accepted the congratulations. What struck me most was the casual certainty in my father's tone, as if this decision had been preordained and merely required formal announcement. No discussion, no consideration of my decade-long stewardship, just a simple declaration that erased years of sacrifice and achievement. I recognized the pattern. The same dismissive attitude that had led him to initially resist my involvement in the business, only relenting when the company teetered on bankruptcy. Even then, he'd viewed my contributions as temporary, a stopgap until Ethan was ready. As I sipped my wine, maintaining the appearance of composure, I noticed my mother's concerned glance. She had witnessed every sleepless night, every personal sacrifice I'd made for the company. Unlike my father, she understood the depth of my commitment, though she rarely voiced her support openly. The contrast between their perspectives crystallized in that moment. My father saw lineage, while my mother saw effort. Yet neither of them had truly grasped the extent to which I had woven myself into the fabric of Harper Logistics. The drive home was a blur of conflicting emotions. Each streetlight illuminated fragments of memories, late-night strategy sessions, crucial contract negotiations, groundbreaking innovations that had revolutionized our operations. All these achievements now seemed inconsequential in the face of my father's decision. As I parked in my driveway, I realized this wasn't just about losing a position, it was about being rendered invisible despite building something extraordinary. And in that realization, something within me shifted. This wasn't going to end the way they expected. That night, sleep eluded me as I meticulously reviewed every document, every shareholder agreement, every financial transaction that had occurred during my tenure at Harper Logistics. My laptop screen cast harsh shadows across my home office as I delved deeper into the intricate web of corporate ownership I had quietly constructed over the years. While others saw my dedication as mere professional diligence, I had been strategically fortifying my position, ensuring that my contributions to the company were irrevocably documented and legally binding. The pivotal moments came flooding back. The 2017 capital expansion when my father, desperate for funding, had transferred 15% of his shares to me in exchange for my personal investment. Then there was the 2019 legal battle, where another 10% had been pledged as collateral, a detail he had conveniently forgotten to reclaim. Combined with my original 35% stake, I now controlled 60% of Harper Logistics, a fact that had somehow escaped both my father's and Ethan's notice. Their assumption that I would simply step aside revealed how thoroughly they had underestimated me. By 3 a.m., my plan was crystallizing. I drafted emails to key executives, prepared confidential documents, and secured digital backups of crucial files. Every action I took was calculated, each move designed to protect not just my position but the future of the company I had built. The Executive Shareholders Agreement from 2015 became my cornerstone. Its clauses requiring majority shareholder approval for any leadership changes would serve as my shield. I methodically organized evidence of every strategic decision, every successful initiative, every risk I had taken to propel Harper Logistics forward. As dawn broke, I finalized my preparations. The board meeting schedule was adjusted, critical personnel were discreetly informed, and contingency plans were put in place. I knew the next 24 hours would determine not just my fate but the future of everything I had worked for. The family might have underestimated me, but they had inadvertently handed me all the tools I needed to secure my position. By the time I arrived at the office at 8:45 a.m., I was no longer just the dedicated daughter who had grown the company. I was the majority shareholder preparing to defend her rightful place. At precisely 9 a.m., the sharp knock on my office door signaled the beginning of the confrontation I had anticipated. Without waiting for a response, my father strode in, Ethan trailing behind him in an expensive navy suit that screamed borrowed confidence. The air crackled with tension as they surveyed my office, their expressions a mixture of entitlement and barely concealed anxiety. "Lisa," my father began, his voice carrying the same authoritative tone he'd used at dinner, "we need to discuss the transition." I leaned back in my chair, allowing a slow smile to form. Transition? Interesting choice of words. My calm demeanor seemed to unsettle them, particularly Ethan, whose confident facade began to crack. When my father announced Ethan's new role as CEO, I interrupted smoothly, "Dad, I think you're mistaken about something." His irritation was palpable as he reiterated their decision, treating it as a fait accompli. That's when I pressed the button to display the shareholders' agreement on the wall screen. The color drained from my father's face as I explained the 2017 and 2019 share transfers, detailing how they had inadvertently made me the majority shareholder. Ethan's initial scoff turned to panic as I presented the latest legal filings confirming my ownership stake. "You see," I continued, my voice steady, "while Ethan was busy failing upward and you were playing the patriarch, I was securing my position." The silence that followed was suffocating, broken only by Ethan's stammered protests and my father's increasingly desperate attempts to find a loophole. When I offered Ethan an advisory role under my leadership, his carefully constructed composure shattered completely. "This isn't how family businesses operate," he exploded, appealing to my father for support. But for the first time, our father had no answer. The legal documentation left no room for interpretation. As I outlined their choices, either accepting my terms or walking away entirely, the power dynamic shifted irrevocably. The men who had entered my office expecting to claim victory departed defeated, their faces masks of disbelief and anger. The click of the door closing behind them marked more than just the end of the meeting. It signified the definitive transfer of control to the person who had earned it through years of unwavering dedication. The morning after our confrontation, the true scope of the challenge became apparent. My inbox flooded with missed calls and messages from department heads and senior executives, each communication tinged with varying degrees of concern and uncertainty. Whispers spread through the corridors like wildfire. Employees exchanged furtive glances, unsure whether to congratulate me or offer condolences. During the emergency executive meeting I called, the tension was palpable. Some avoided my gaze altogether, while others watched me too closely, waiting for any sign of weakness. The resistance manifested in subtle ways: passive-aggressive emails questioning operational decisions, department heads suddenly unavailable for crucial meetings, and a noticeable decline in proactive communication. My father and Ethan had mobilized their network effectively, leveraging decades-old relationships and implied threats to create doubt about my leadership capabilities. Industry analysts began speculating publicly about potential instability at Harper Logistics, citing family drama as a threat to company performance. Yet the greatest challenge came from within. Several longtime executives, loyal to my father's traditional approach, openly questioned my modernization initiatives. The CFO, Paul, who had always supported my strategies, found himself caught between loyalty to the past and faith in the future I represented. Even some of my closest allies hesitated, torn between their respect for my achievements and their fear of crossing my father's influential circle. The media scrutiny intensified, with business publications running speculative pieces about the family feud threatening Harper Logistics' stability. Each obstacle forced me to adapt my strategy. I implemented transparent communication channels, held regular town hall meetings to address concerns directly, and initiated one-on-one discussions with key stakeholders. When certain departments showed signs of deliberate slowdowns, I restructured reporting lines and redistributed responsibilities. The experience taught me that leadership wasn't just about holding the majority shares, it required earning trust daily, demonstrating unwavering commitment, and proving that my vision for the company's future was worth following, regardless of family loyalties. The media battlefield erupted 2 days later when my father's carefully crafted press release hit the wires, painting me as an aggressive, unstable leader who had betrayed family values for corporate power. Major business outlets ran stories questioning my ability to maintain company stability, with headlines like "Harper Logistics Caught in Family Feud" and "CEO Power Grab Threatens Corporate Legacy." Industry analysts debated whether my leadership style would alienate clients and investors, while social media buzzed with speculation about internal turmoil. Instead of issuing a defensive statement, I executed my counter-strategy through investigative journalism contacts. Within 24 hours, damning articles exposed years of financial mismanagement under my father's leadership, hidden debts, questionable accounting practices, and risky investments that had nearly bankrupted the company before my intervention. The narrative shifted dramatically as reporters highlighted how my leadership had not only saved Harper Logistics but transformed it into an industry innovator. Financial records proved that every major success since 2015 had been directly attributable to my initiatives. The public relations coup triggered a domino effect. Board members who had wavered in their support suddenly found their positions untenable. Key investors, initially concerned about family conflict, doubled down on their commitments after reviewing the newly published data. My father's remaining allies in upper management faced mounting pressure as employees rallied behind the leader who had demonstrably grown their retirement funds and career opportunities. When a prominent business magazine named me Innovator of the Year, citing my strategic foresight and operational excellence, the last vestiges of opposition within the company crumbled. 2 weeks after the media firestorm, my father's call came through. His voice, usually so commanding, now carried a note of defeat. "We need to talk," he said, the words heavy with unspoken acknowledgement. We met in the same conference room where I had first presented the shareholders' agreement, but this time the dynamic was different. Gone was the authoritative patriarch. In his place sat a man visibly aged by recent events. "I'm stepping down," he announced, his hands trembling slightly as he pushed across the resignation papers. "I'll sell my remaining shares, retain a small percentage as an investor, but I won't be involved anymore." The finality of his words hung in the air as he confirmed Ethan's departure. My brother had taken the buyout package and disappeared from the business entirely. For a moment, the weight of what we had lost, the family unity, the shared history, threatened to overwhelm me. But then my father said something that caught me off guard. "I underestimated you." It wasn't an apology, but it was as close as he would ever come to acknowledging his mistake. Strangely, I found I didn't need more. The proof of my capabilities was evident in every aspect of the company's success. In the months that followed, I systematically rebuilt Harper Logistics' leadership structure. The old guard, those who had clung to my father's outdated methods, retired or moved on. In their place, I promoted forward-thinking executives who shared my vision for innovation and growth. We launched initiatives my father had always resisted, implementing AI-driven logistics solutions, expanding into sustainable shipping options, and developing new market sectors he had deemed too risky. Within 6 months, profits soared beyond projections, and by the end of the fiscal year, we had crossed the $100 million revenue mark. The transformation extended beyond financial metrics. Company culture evolved to embrace merit over legacy, performance over privilege. Employees who had once feared expressing innovative ideas now contributed freely, knowing their contributions would be valued based on merit rather than family connections. Our client base expanded as word spread about Harper Logistics' new era of efficiency and technological advancement. Even my father, in his limited capacity as a minor shareholder, began acknowledging the wisdom of my decisions during quarterly meetings. A year after the upheaval, I found myself sitting across from my father at a quiet restaurant. Over dinner, he commented on our latest successful acquisition, a tech startup that would revolutionize our tracking systems. "Smart move," he said, raising his glass. As our glasses clinked, I realized the war was truly over. Not because I had won, but because I no longer needed to prove anything to anyone. The company was thriving, my leadership unquestioned, and my father's approval, once so desperately sought, had become irrelevant. We had reached a new equilibrium, one based on mutual respect for what each of us had contributed to Harper Logistics' legacy. Looking out over the city from my office window, I reflect on the journey that transformed me from a dutiful daughter into the undisputed leader of Harper Logistics. The battles fought weren't just about control or recognition, they were about redefining what leadership means in a world where traditional expectations often clash with modern realities. Through this experience, I learned that family dynamics can be both your greatest strength and your most formidable obstacle. Loyalty, once considered an inherent family trait, proved to be a currency that must be earned daily through consistent actions and demonstrated commitment. Power, I discovered, is never simply given. It must be taken through strategic positioning and unwavering resolve. The most valuable lesson came from realizing that seeking validation from those who refuse to see your worth is a futile endeavor. True strength lies in building something so robust, so undeniable in its success, that it commands respect regardless of personal biases. As I review our latest quarterly projections, showing continued growth and industry leadership, I understand that the real victory wasn't in winning the battle against my family. It was in creating a legacy that stands on its own merits, independent of bloodlines or traditional expectations. Harper Logistics is no longer just a family business, it's a testament to the power of vision, perseverance, and the courage to redefine success on one's own terms.